Welcome to Start with the Dark, a podcast by Witch, a space where ancient storytelling meets modern magic, where witches join forces, weaving wisdom through threads and illuminating the unseen.
Welcome to Start with the Dark by Witch, the podcast where we talk about all facets of witchy life. I'm Coley McManus, a tarot reader and astrologer, and today I want to talk about healing through our birth charts. This is Soothing Your Shadow with Astrology. But before I get too far into it, we want to share an important message for today and beyond on setting the scene of witches' storytelling. The hosts and guests of this podcast are not in any way, unless clearly stating otherwise, claiming to be an expert of the topics we discuss. Rather, Witch is sharing musings from truth seekers on a lifelong journey on a mission to bring magic to many. Witch is and always will be a group of witches in training. Witch is a powerful collective of voices who are constantly learning and unlearning, gathering and sharing knowledge and spreading through threads. Please seek professional medical care and guidance wherever needed. Witch is a spiritual coven sharing our own personal experiences on the teachings imparted by spiritual mentors and the lessons gifted to us through the difficult challenges we've endured along the way. Which remains and always will represent the students of the mystical, which is a safe space to unveil self-truths, explore mystical worlds, and muse on what might be. So, with that in mind, when listening to Witch, please take what resonates with you and leave behind what doesn't. In this episode, we discuss some difficult topics. As always, astrology is part of a whole, and in order to delve into your entire personality, we would have to look at your entire birth chart. Please only look into these topics if you feel that you are ready to do so in terms of your own health and well-being. With that all said, let's dive in. Astrology is the study of movements and positions of celestial bodies and interpreting how they influence human affairs. You probably know your star sign based on when you were born, but astrology is really so much more than that. In the study of astrology, we look at the time, location, and date of a person's birth to draw up a birth chart which tells you the position of all of the planets and asteroids in the entire universe the moment you arrived onto this earth. It's kind of wild to think about, but I often call a birth chart a screenshot of the universe, and that makes it easier to visualize. It can be an amazing thing to see your birth chart for the first time, and to finally start to understand the nuances of your personality, the good, the bad, and the nonsensical within you. But sometimes people, when learning about astrology or getting their chart read by someone else, can find out that they have planets or asteroids in their chart, also called their placements, that aren't considered good amongst the astrology set. Unfortunately, since everyone's specific birth chart is tied to the day they were born, there isn't really a way to change these placements. Often when people start to get into astrology and to learn more about their placements within their chart, they might find that they have a specific planet in detriment or fall, which can certainly strike a bit of fear into the hearts of any budding astrologer. A planet in detriment or fall simply means that the expression of the planet in the birth chart doesn't express itself as easily as if the planet was in its domicile or its home sign, or in exaltation, where the planet is at its happiest. Having any of your personal placements, that is to say your Sun, Moon, Venus, Mars, or Mercury, in what's considered a bad placement once you Google it, can be an upsetting experience. Astrologers can be a bit fatalistic and dramatic, especially online. But if you have a planet in your chart in a less than favourable position, it really isn't the end of the world. It might mean that things do not flow as naturally to you in a certain area of your life as it appears to flow for those around you. But having a quote-unquote bad Venus, as an example, doesn't mean that you inherently just don't know how to love or to be loved. In fact, most people don't even have especially good placements in their astrological birth chart. Most of them are just average and don't really express anything especially amazing or terrible. Everyone in the world has at least one placement they don't particularly like. No one absolutely loves their entire personality, and it's the same in astrology, since that's just another way to reveal your personality. In my own birth chart, I can think of a few placements I don't particularly love, but when I was learning astrology initially, I often felt a bit sad that these parts of myself that I knew that I hated were written right there in the stars, unchangeable. But though we can't change our charts, we can learn to work with them. Many famous people who are generally considered to be talented, important, and beloved have astrological birth charts that show these typical bad parts of a chart. It can come in the form of a few too many retrogrades, when a planet seems like it's moving backwards and it causes it to show up a bit funny or atypical in our chart. It might be the placement itself, such as a Virgo Venus in fall, meaning that the expression of Venus isn't generally happy in the methodical sign of Virgo. It might even be the position of the planet in one of the 12 houses in our chart, such as the 12th house moon. It might be a bunch of oppositions or squares between the planets, creating a sense of tension or disagreement between the parts of yourself. No one has the perfect chart. It simply doesn't exist. But looking at these less than perfect parts can really help in terms of shadow work and understanding yourself in a deeper way. When I was learning about my chart and learning to read others as well, I found that what I loved most about the work was learning about myself and having the validation that there wasn't anything terribly wrong with me. It was just a part of my chart that maybe wasn't as harmonious as the rest of it. Sometimes, just knowing that you're seen by the stars is the most soothing first step someone can take. Looking at your planets can be a good start into healing through astrology, but I feel I would be remiss to not discuss asteroids in discussing parts of our chart that relate to the shadow. Asteroids in astrology are about very specific parts of your personality. There's pretty much an asteroid for anything you might want to find out about yourself within your chart, but I have to talk about the heavy hitters in shadow work, starting with everyone's favorite centaur, Chiron. In order to talk about Chiron, I've got to tell you a little bit about the myth surrounding him first, so sit back and relax while I tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a centaur, and like most centaurs around in ancient Greece, this guy was amazing at all things healing. In fact, he was widely believed to be the best of them all, able to heal practically anything and always generally doing a great job. That is, until one day when he was shot with an arrow in the thigh while he was helping all manner of heroes during a battle. Normally, a wound like this would be fatal, but our centaur was immortal, and so while he didn't die, he felt all the effects of a mortal wound and was in excruciating pain. After a short time, he couldn't take it anymore, and begged the gods to take away his immortality and let him die since there was no way to heal his wounds, and they eventually agreed, not wanting to see him suffer for eternity, and to live to tell everyone about it. They set him up in the stars, and he became the constellation Sagittarius, which is why it's depicted as a centaur now. That centaur was called Chiron, and he represents the wounded healer archetype in astrology. Chiron shows up in your chart where you may have had some early wounds in your life, and can show you areas you might need to work on in order to heal and to make yourself stronger. If you look up your Chiron placement, you might find it relates to a part of yourself you don't really like, and that's okay. That's sort of the point. It's only in confronting that part of yourself and reclaiming the energy that you can start to use the power of the Chiron asteroid for healing and shadow work. The next asteroids I'm going to talk about always sort of come as a pair in my view. The mythology surrounding them both are linked heavily with each other, so it's probably easiest to talk about them together. So, here's another myth story again. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful princess who married a very, very famous man. You may know him. His name is Hercules, or Heracles if you speak ancient Greek. After completing 12 arduous labors, he met the beautiful princess Dejanira and settled down with her. Everything was fine, by ancient Greek standards, until one day when the princess was kidnapped and attacked by an evil centaur named Nessus. Our hero sprung into action and killed him with a poisoned arrow, but as Nessus's blood fell and he lay dying, he told the princess that using his blood would make a potion that would ensure her husband would never look at another woman. Clearly the princess was concerned about this being a possibility, so she did what he said and put the potion on the hero's cloth. But once it touched his demigod skin, he became poisoned too and died an awful death. She was so distraught at all the trauma that had been inflicted on her, and in her own naivete, that she ended up suffering an awful death too. Dejanira means man-destroyer, or husband-destroyer, but really, she was a victim of Nessus. Her asteroid shows us where we might have been a victim of situations in our lives, and can show us the path to healing them. Nessus, that evil centaur, was known to attack and abduct women, even though centaurs were created to be healers and helpers, like Chiron. The Nessus asteroid can show us abusive situations we may have found ourselves in, who it's regarding, and what area of life it pertains to most. It's quite a heavy asteroid, so again, disclaimer here, please only delve into looking into Nessus if you can handle it and you feel able to look into heavy topics like this. Learning about Nessus can help us recognize these patterns in our lives, with things like understanding the why of why our grown-up selves have all these painful childhood wounds, or understanding that these things are real and they are able to be fixed or helped along. With Dejanira, we can learn how to heal ourselves after trauma or victimization, and truly start on the path to meaningful healing. Using asteroids and astrology as a whole can really help with learning more about who you are and how to heal the shadowy parts of yourself. To me, I always think that the so-called bad placements in astrology are like when you have a specific part of your body that you have to learn to love, even if it won't look exactly how you want it to for whatever reason. Astrology is a great tool to help people learn about themselves, but also to accept the parts that they can't really change and to utilize it for the better. Sometimes it's enough to just be seen by the stars, and there's a sense of soothing in that. If we know ourselves, then we can learn how to heal ourselves and love ourselves, and that's really what everything is all about. If you'd like to learn more about astrology, I'd recommend reading Linda Goodman's Sun Signs and Moon Signs, or following us on Instagram at weare_witch and TikTok at reclaimthewitch, or my personal witchy page where I talk about all things astrology and tarot over on Instagram at mixcraft and misery. As we wrap up today's episode, we invite you to take a moment to reflect on the more difficult parts of your birth chart and your feelings about it. Has this episode sparked an idea for you to delve into your asteroids and to look at some of the more shadowy experiences in your life? We encourage listeners to engage with their own shadow in order to reclaim their power and to really and truly help heal themselves, but only when you are ready. So, trust in your own magic, your own self, and stay on your personal path to self-discovery. Join us in the witch community as fellow seekers of truth. And remember, the path forward is through self-awareness, self-compassion, and the courage to look within. Take what resonates, leave behind what doesn't, and keep seeking magic in the unseen. Join us next time on Witch as we continue this journey together, and thank you for listening.
Grab your broomsticks, let's reclaim your witch title, and let's embark on a mission to bring magic to many.